Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here. So today I wanted to talk a bit more about Battlefield Portal. We've had the news for a couple of days now, so I've been sort of digesting that, and I don't know about your mind, but my mind has just been flying with all of the different possibilities that we could create for ourselves within this Battlefield Portal mode, and just what that can mean for the community. I watched Jack Frags' video this morning where he had an interview with one of the devs from Ripple Effect Studios, one of the DICE OG guys, and it really just humbled me and made me so happy to hear him say that he wanted to work closely with the community the same way they did in Battlefield 4. For those who don't know, DICE LA, who are now called Ripple Effect Studios, were pretty much single-handedly responsible for turning Battlefield 4 around. They worked closely with the community, listening to what we wanted, what we thought was best for the game, and then they tested it with the community and eventually put it into the game, resulting in the game that Battlefield 4 is today. Now, Battlefield Portal is a game mode I have really wanted for the Battlefield series forever. At the moment, most people are focusing on the crazy, the wacky game modes, you know, the unbalanced game modes, let's call it, like the 1 tank versus the 20 EOD bots that they showed off in the trailer. And I think that's definitely a welcome game mode. You know, you don't want to sweat all the time when you play Battlefield. I don't know about you guys, maybe you can let me know down in the comments, but personally, I can only really play for like an hour or two, and then I'm just sort of burnt out. I know that Battlefield isn't exactly CSGO, but nevertheless, it still takes a certain amount of concentration. So having another place that you can go to and just hop into a simple game mode, you don't really care about winning and losing, it's more just about goofing around and having fun. I think that's a really welcome thing to the Battlefield series. Of course, we don't want to lose the balanced side of the game either, and that's why we have the all-out warfare mode that Battlefield 2042 is going to bring, of course. But I think one of the big things that people have missed here is the fact that you can also create training grounds within Battlefield Portal. So one of the first game modes that I will definitely make for this, and I'm sure a lot of other people will, is a dogfighting server. And you can think of this as a huge practice area, essentially. It will just be a big, wide open map with only F-35s or only Su-57s for the Russian side, and people can just practice flying around in the jets, practice the flight mechanics and whatnot, and just get used to the game. I think that's also going to be a very vital part of Battlefield Portal. You can essentially create any sort of training simulator that you want to help you improve at the base game of Battlefield 2042. Because like I say, whilst the main focus at the moment is on 1942 coming back and BF3 and Bad Company 2, let's not forget that we still have access to all of the 2042 new assets. So if you want to make any sort of a game mode just based on the fundamental rules of Battlefield 2042, those maps and mechanics and vehicles and weapons, you can do that. Now that being said, I would also like to take this in the crazy wacky direction and maybe make a random vehicle spawn dogfight server. So, you know, something like you have all of the different jets and planes from the different Battlefield games in a pool, and every time you spawn, you have no idea which jet or plane you're going to get. So one spawn you might have an Su-57, and the next spawn you might end up being in a BF-109. Now of course, balance could be an issue, and we have heard so far from Ripple Effect Studios that like when it comes to the weapons, there are going to be two different sorts of settings. So you're going to have the classic weapon damage and recoil settings, where they're going to try as best as they can to replicate the different settings that you had in the different games, but then there's also going to be a more balanced setting that you can sort of blanket apply across all of the different weapons regardless of which era they come from, that will sort of balance them out, make sure that they all do a similar amount of damage and have similar recoil control, so that, you know, weapons from 1942 can actually hold their own against weapons from Battlefield 2042. Now, is the same thing going to apply to the flight mechanics? You know, are we going to get Battlefield 3 flight mechanics and speed control going up against a completely different system? I really highly doubt it. I don't think they've bothered to make many different physics systems when it comes to driving tanks or piloting jets. I think we're just going to use whatever physics system that 2042 has in place for the main game that is going to be, you know, put in place across all of the air vehicles. So whether you're flying a Spitfire in 1942 or an F-18 from Battlefield 3 or an F-35 in 2042, the flight control system and the physics system is, I would guess, going to be exactly the same, which probably helps with a lot of the balance of a Spitfire versus an Su-57. So logically moving on from air superiority, I know you guys can see where this is going, how about tank superiority? I would love to see this game mode return. I thought it was really fun in Battlefield 3. For those who don't know, it was basically just a ton of tanks on one team versus a ton of tanks on the other team. So the Russians had the T-90 and the Americans had the M1 Abrams. And it was just such a great game mode for practicing those tank-on-tank showdowns, practicing hitting shells at longer distances, how much fall off there is, how much drop off there is of the shells, etc. It was never the most balanced game mode, of course. It was kind of wacky, and sometimes you'd have 3 tanks just gang up on you and you would just get 3 shot or 4 shot by the enemy tanks, but it was a lot of fun, and I would really just like to create that in Battlefield 3, so I won't maybe be mixing the different factions together from different eras. I would just go with like Battlefield 3 T-90s versus M1 Abrams, and I guess we'd have to go with Caspian Border because No Shore Canals isn't really big enough for tank superiority. Honestly, you need a pretty big fleshed out map for that sort of thing with a lot of room, but who knows, maybe somewhere down the line they'll add some of the maps from the Armored Kill expansion. Okay, next game mode idea actually comes from a guy from the Discord by the name of Derek, and his idea is for a border patrol. So this would basically be like a Defend the Hill game mode, where you basically are set up on the C flag on Caspian Border with sniper rifles, and then you have AI bots that spawn in from the landing strip on the US side and work their way towards the C flag, and your job is to snipe as many of them as you can. Now what you could do is put a one-hit multiplayer, so it doesn't matter if you headshot them or you body shot them, wherever you hit them, it's a one-shot kill, and the objective here is basically just to stop the AI from encroaching on the hill and overwhelming you. Maybe over time there'd be a way to make more and more of them spawn in, so you start with wave 1 and there's only 10 enemy soldiers, and once you get to like wave 20 there's maybe hundreds of them. And inevitably you will die and they'll get up there and knife you, but the goal here is just to see how long you can survive. And again, just talking about this game mode, this makes me think about sniper practice. That's probably a fantastic game mode for practicing your headshots, practicing hitting enemies at great distances, and getting used to the fall off of the sniper rifles and the bullet drop that is actually in the game. Really, the possibilities for practicing in this game mode are endless. Now, you've heard of Gunmaster, but what about Vehicle Master? Just random spawns, any vehicle from any Battlefield era, no infantry play at all, you just spawn in a vehicle and that's your vehicle. You might get an Su-57, you might get a T-90, you might get some sort of a Jeep or a quad bike. Maybe we'll allow for people to play support so that they can strap some C4 onto the front of their vehicle and they can always go the Jihad Jeep route if they have no other option. But those are some of mine and Derek's ideas just off the top of our heads about what is possible. I would also really love if you guys would post any of your ideas that you have down below. I just want to see how everyone is thinking. Obviously you guys can tell from my list that I'm more of a vehicular player in Battlefield, so I don't really think as much about the infantry modes, so it would be great if there are some infantry players out there who would comment what sort of modes and what sort of things they'd find entertaining in this. I'm really just stoked to see what Ripple Effects Studios do with this as well. The fact that they're listening to the community is, you know, just fantastic. So if we speak up and we say we want this weapon or this vehicle or this map from this Battlefield game, maybe even future Battlefield games. So, you know, there is a possibility that somewhere down the line they could add in 2142 support and we could see walkers added into the mix and maps from Battlefield 2142, or perhaps even some naval warfare stuff, the attack boats from BF4, and we could be having fun sailing around on Parasol Storm again with Megalodons. Oh, I'm honestly just giddy with the expectations. I really expect Battlefield 2042 and of course Portal to be around for the next few years. I don't really know what DICE's game plan is, if they're planning to make another Battlefield game in the next 2 years, or if they're going to wait 3 years or even more, or if they're just going to plan for Battlefield 2042 to be their big main thing for years to come. Either way, I can definitely see Battlefield Portal adding to this. Let me know guys down below what your ideas are and what you thought of the video. As always, leaving a like if you enjoyed is super appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe for more upcoming Battlefield 2042 content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.